Hey you guys, it's Peter, and welcome to my channel, Peterisms, where I tell stories of my life and just little things that I have learned as I have grown into the person that I am today. Happy Friday. Welcome to the weekend. It is beautiful outside in Indianapolis, Indiana today. I think it's like upper 70s, low 80s today. It's just absolutely beautiful outside, and I am excited for a very, very relaxing weekend. So I thought that I would start the weekend off with a little meditation. I actually didn't plan on filming a Peterisms video today, but my husband's upstairs taking a nap with little Boo Radley, and so I thought, you know what, I'm getting ready to do a review video out here, and why not start the wonderful weekend off with a meditation? So I have my other meditation book, what's it called? The Language of Letting Go. I have it upstairs. And so I didn't want to wake up Boo Radley and Alex, so I got this one instead, which is the other Melody Baby book, Journey to the Heart. I haven't read from this in quite some time, so I thought that I would see what the meditation is for today, and maybe look at some of the past meditations as well, and just have a meditation or two before we start the weekend. So let me get into this. It is Friday the 13th. Happy Friday the 13th. Hope you guys are all being safe out there on Friday the 13th. Okay, I'm in October. Let's get to September. September the 13th. Here we are. Surrender to your feelings. Let's see what this says. September 13th, surrender to your feelings. Sometimes we think being strong means not giving in to our emotions, but that's not strength. That's denial and resistance. Real power comes from being vulnerable enough to feel whatever we feel. Keep going, we tell ourselves. Don't give in. This will pass. But the only way to pass through these times is by feeling what we feel. The longer we fight and resist our emotions, the longer the situation will continue that is triggering them. We may not see the lesson until we feel the feeling. We may not see the issue, the next step, the way out, or the way through. And I love that, the way through. Until we give in, feel our emotions, then release them. It's not enough to talk about them, although that will help bring them into consciousness, into the light of day. But talking about our feelings is different from surrendering to and feeling the emotional energy. Feel the feeling, then release it. Now your soul and the universe can move you forward into new circumstances, into growth, an issue to work on, such as freedom, forgiveness, acceptance, love, or valuing some part of ourselves or our lives, may naturally and automatically emerge. If we pay attention to the process by which we grow, we will clearly see that each step of the way, feeling our feeling, accepting it, and then releasing it, trigger the next step of growth. Soon we will see that we are triggered the next step of growth. Soon we will see that we are learning a new lesson. We are on our way again. There is magic in allowing our feelings to pass through us, magic in giving in. There is power, more than we think, in being vulnerable enough to feel what we feel. I love this meditation so much, and you know, when I'm reading these meditations, I always kind of just like go to, you know, gut feelings about things or memories from my past. And I immediately went to, you know, I get a lot of questions from people asking me, like, how did you deal with grief from your mom's, you know, passing and things like that. And actually, I think going through grieving my mother's loss was a teaching lesson for me on how to handle grief about anything in my life. And it prepared me for further grief down the road, and I've applied this to other things in my life. You know, at the time that my mom passed away, I was very, very numb. I just really didn't know how to deal with it. I didn't know how to vocalize my feelings or emotions. I think we're taught to just kind of say, oh, I'm good, I'm okay, because we don't want other people to worry about us. And so, or I didn't want other people to worry about me. So when people would ask me how I'm doing, I would say, I'm doing okay. When it's perfectly fine to say, I'm not doing well today. I'm not doing well at all. Like, I'm really, really struggling, you know? And it was a couple of months in, and I remember I would just, like, I would hear a song that would come on. So when my mom passed away, some friends of mine and we put together these CDs of all of my mom's favorite music, and we, you know, played it at the showing and things like that. It was all of her favorite music from her life. And so I had these CDs, and, you know, every once in a while I would play them, and it would be a certain song that would come on. It would be like The Way We Were. My mom loved that song, The Way We Were, or the Barbra Streisand song that was in the movie. And so, like, that would come on, you know, and I would just stop, and I would just allow myself, like, 5 or 10 minutes just to sit in that feeling and that emotion and just feel it and sob and just allow myself to be really, really upset in that moment, you know, because I couldn't be upset 24 hours a day because I had to function, you know, I had to work, I had to do things, I wanted to interact with other people, and just to be stuck and just not really knowing how to feel or communicate how I felt, I felt stuck. And so I would allow myself that 5 or 10 minutes or half an hour or even an hour if I needed it, just to sit in my feelings and just feel it, you know. And that's one of the things that I tell people a lot today. Give yourself time throughout the day to really just sit in your feeling and allow it. Like, don't push it away, just sit, like, sink into it. Just allow yourself to be sad in that moment. And I would even say to myself, like, okay, I'm gonna, like, allow myself the next half an hour, and then I'm gonna get back to whatever I was doing, you know. I can even remember at different points in my life allowing myself or pushing myself to really watch sad movies. I can remember watching, like, The Color Purple, because The Color Purple is a movie that, like, really just, like, brings out my emotion, especially the end of it. And I would watch certain movies that would just make me emotional, like, make me cry, make me, like, raw emotions come out. Because I needed to get those tears out. I needed to get that crying out. And it was really, you know, pushing me to feel vulnerable and allowing myself, maybe even just in the space of my, you know, just between myself and the television, to really cry and allow that to come out. But, you know, I really pushed down a lot of those feelings of grief for a very long time. And I remember when I came back into the rooms of recovery, and I didn't really know what to share, and I was so sad, but at the same time angry. I think that period of my life has really helped me understand other people and their anger and their hatred towards others, because I didn't, you know, I'm such a believer that hate and anger is a secondary emotion, because it's definitely, it's an emotion that covers up something else. Like, when people have a strong hate or strong anger towards a situation or other people, it's usually like, I've learned that resentment is an unfulfilled expectation. So anger, or, it just got really windy out here, anger or hurt when expressed by somebody else is usually because they feel let down, or they're hurt, their feelings are hurt. Like, those are primary emotions, right? Like hurt, like pain is a primary emotion. So if somebody else hurt me, an easier way to display that, instead of saying, you really hurt my feelings, like, I was really disappointed in you, an easier way is to come out with anger, right? And I think that I was in a really bad, I was really angry before I came back into the rooms of recovery. And so when I came back in and I was trying to get healthy again, I really didn't know, I mean, I had been in anger for so long. I was angry at God. I was angry at, I was angry at so many people in my life just for being alive, and my mom wasn't. It didn't, none of it, it was irrational anger. It didn't even make sense, right? And I think that's allowed me to be a little bit more forgiving of people with their own anger, because I'm like, I don't, you know, I remember years ago hearing the saying, like, you know, I've quoted this before, like with Oprah, where, you know, Oprah interviewed these women that were in a state prison for killing their kids, and one of them said to her afterwards, why don't you hate me? Or why don't you hate us? And Oprah responded to her and she said, hate you? No, I don't hate you. See, because that's what you do with your anger, but I do something different with mine. And we all do something different with our anger. And I think it's really helped me understand how people express their anger, and that maybe their anger really isn't about anger or hate. Maybe it's really about the misery of their condition of their own life, or the sadness of their life, or the sadness of other things, or disappointment, you know, and just being unhappy in their own lives. And so it's easier to take that out and be angry at somebody, or have hate, than it is to just say, you really hurt my feelings, or I'm, like, really not in a good place right now. Like, that's so hard to say to a lot of people, right? And I can remember coming back into the rooms of recovery, and I really didn't know how to share it at all. And I would just, like, share something about this or that. And then I remember early on, I heard this lead. I've shared this a lot. So a lead is when somebody shares their story. And I was listening to a lot of them, like, you know, CDs and online and things like that. And I heard this woman share the story. And it was something about, every day somebody would ask her how she was doing, and she'd say, I'm doing okay, right? And she was dying inside. Like, she was literally dying inside, like, thinking about exit plans. And she finally, one day, this woman said to her, same woman would ask her every day, how are you doing? And she finally said, I'm not doing good at all. Well, I had to have this friend of mine. It's my friend that actually, you know, she's the one that said to me years ago, like, you know, if nobody else told, well, my sponsor said it too, but she was, you know, nobody told you this today, I love you. And whenever I see her to this day, she always says, I effing love you, Peter Monn. Like, that's like the first thing. She's like, oh, I effing love you. I love this woman so much, right? She's so real. And she makes me feel seen. and she makes me feel loved. And I think that's a gift that we can give other people, to make people feel seen and loved. Not just like, hey, it's good to see you, but like really make people feel seen and loved. And I can remember every day I was going to meetings twice a day, and every day at the noon meeting I would see her at, and she would say, hey, how are you doing today? And I just met her. We had only known each other for a couple weeks, and I was like, I don't know her, right? But I heard this lead, and I was like, the next time she asks me, and I wasn't, like, I didn't necessarily have exit plans, but I did feel like I was dying. And so like I didn't know what to do. Like I didn't feel like I was healing. I just felt like I was showing up. And not just to meetings, but to life. I just felt like I was showing up, like I was just existing. And I said to myself, the next time she asks me, I'm going to be honest with her. And the next time she asked me, she said, how are you doing? And I said, I'm not doing very good, you know? And I remember she said, you want to go outside and talk? And so we went outside after the meeting and we talked, and she really helped me. And it wasn't that she solved my problems or that she gave me answers. She listened to me, and she made me feel seen, and she made me feel heard. And, you know, I think she allowed a space for me to be vulnerable, to share what I was going through. And she allowed me a space to share emotionally what I was going through. And I needed that safe place, right? Because I didn't have a lot of people that I trusted at that time that I could share things with that I felt. And then it was like, I let another person in, and I let another person in, and I can remember those first, like, 6 months of going to that noon meeting every day, and, like, I'm sure people were like, God, is he talking about his mom again? Like, I mean, I would, like, I got so upset. I was, like, crying and screaming, and I was like, I don't understand why God did this, you know? And I had to do that. Like, I cathartically worked through that. I can remember, like, a couple years after that, seeing this friend of mine that she went to the meeting every day too, and I said something about, God, I probably drove people crazy for, you know, talking about my mom every day. And she said, you were living your grief out loud. You were teaching that to other people. She's like, don't ever apologize for that. She said, you were showing other people what it looks like to live grief out loud. She goes, in recovery, we are taught to live out loud. She said, you don't ever apologize for that. You were giving other people a template for what that looks like. I didn't even know that at the time. I just knew that I could not share it. And I would leave meetings and I felt so good. It was like I had gotten it off my chest, you know? I wasn't suffering inside, because I'm a believer that, I mean, for so much of my life, I just pushed stuff down, pushed stuff down, pushed stuff down, and never really knew what to do with it, you know? Thank God I never picked up and drank or drugged over it, you know? Because I could have. I've had friends of mine that have done that. I've had friends of mine that have never dealt with stuff in their life, and they've gone back out and they started using again, and they're not here anymore. And I have friends of mine that went back out and started using again, and you know, they just are continuing to use, and that's how they deal with their lives today. I've had friends of mine that never picked up but took their lives because they didn't see any other outlets to whatever pain they were going through at that time. And that breaks my heart, you know? There are people dying every day because we don't communicate how our emotions, because we don't know how to do that, right? Like, we don't know how to find safe places or safe people and communicate what's really going on with them. And so sometimes it has to start with us. And for me, it definitely had to start with me. For me, it definitely had to start with giving myself the spaces for 5 to 10 minutes and then a half an hour or whatever, where I would just listen to music and just cry. And sometimes I didn't even know what I was crying about. Sometimes I just felt sad. You know, sometimes there's not just always like we have all these feelings, or we just feel sad. I mean, there are just days that I wake up that my heart is heavy. And I'm sure you guys feel the same way, whether it's world events that are going on or personal events, or just we wake up and we just don't feel good that day. We're just sad. I mean, there are just days that, like, and today I'm very honest about that stuff. You know, today when people in my life will say things to me like, how are you doing today? If I'm feeling happy, I'll be like, today's a good day. I'm content. I'm happy today, you know? There'll be other days where people, like, you know, Tanya Jean will call me and she'll say, how are you doing today? I'll say, I'm not doing good today. I'm sad, you know? Like, and she'll do the same thing to me, and my husband and I will, you know, say, I'm sad today. Like, you know, like, or, you know, I'm just like, I'm not feeling it today. And I think it's important to recognize those, because when we don't, then it's like I said in my video the other day, it's like the bitter and the sweet. We don't acknowledge the sweet if we don't acknowledge the bitter. And I think it's important, but I also don't want to be stuck in that. And so I have to have ways to move through it. And for me to move through it, not to move over it or move on. Because when people say that, I've said it a couple times in videos just because I think we all say it. But for me, it's really about the action of moving through the pain and not carrying it, you know, with us. But we're always going to carry the memories with us, but moving through the pain. And to move through the pain, you have to feel the pain, you know? And I think that You know, it's interesting. I was watching this true crime documentary last night called Into the Fire, and this woman's using going into this like burning house as an example, and she's like, and I'm gonna walk through that fire and feel every bit of it until I get to the other side. And I thought that's really such a great example of what working through issues and working through feelings is all about, that you like work through it until you feel everything about it. But we don't really want to do that sometimes because it's too painful, right? But then on the other side, to allow ourselves vulnerability, to feel our emotions authentically, and really, and authentically I mean like by really feeling our real raw feelings and allowing ourselves to feel that, then on the other side it's like you come out of it and you're like, God, I feel so good, you know? Like, what a relief to get that off my shoulders, you know? There's a famous recovery book that's called Drop the Rock, and at the beginning of it, the analogy is that we're like chained, we're like held down, like it's these people trying to get to shore from this boat, and they have these chains with rocks on them. It's like drop the rock, and each rock is like a character defect, but that could also be looked at as like emotions, right? It's like we carry all these heavy emotions, these heavy issues with us, and it's like we gotta drop them so we can be our most real self and enjoy life. Isn't that what it's all about, Charlie Brown? I mean, isn't life really supposed to be about us working through this stuff, moving through the pain and enjoying our life as best as possible, you know? And I'm glad that my friend said that to me about don't apologize. You know, you are modeling how to live out loud to other people, because other people have modeled that for me in the past. They've modeled how to live out loud. You know, I had a friend of mine who, she lost her son and her daughter that morning at like 8 a.m. Her son and her daughter-in-law at like 8 a.m. that morning, and she was at a noon meeting sharing about it, talking about how she felt, you know, and that she didn't know what to do, and she didn't know where God was in that, and that's honest, right? Like, I love when somebody is just like, I'll look at me, I just be like, that is honest. Like, there's some, you know, I've had so many friends of mine, you know, my friend, her mother took her own life, and like that night she was in a meeting talking about it, surrounded by people that loved her, you know, that were comforting her and saying, get it out, feel your feelings, you know, don't just stay stuck in it. And that's what I've been taught to do, you know, that's what I've been taught to do, is to just talk about the things that are going on in my life, you know, and that's important. So anyway, let me know what you think in the comment section below. I hope that you guys have a magically amazing weekend. I love you, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.